Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Greenland is essential for America's national security. The new domain of international competition is going to be polar competition. That is where more and more resources are being spent by our nation's adversaries and rivals, is the ability to control movement, navigation, lanes of travel in the polar and Arctic regions. Greenland is 25% larger than Alaska. Greenland is the size of 1/4 the continental United States. With respect to Denmark, Denmark is a tiny country with a tiny economy and a tiny military. They cannot defend Greenland. They cannot control the territory of Greenland. Under every understanding of law that has existed about territorial control for 500 years, to control a territory, you have to be able to defend a territory, improve a territory, inhabit a territory. Denmark has failed on every single one of these tests. So they want us to spend hundreds of billions of dollars defending a territory for them that is 25% bigger than Alaska at 100% American expense. But they say, while we do this, it belongs 100% to Denmark. It's a raw deal. It's an unfair deal. And most importantly, it's unfair to the American taxpayer, who have subsidized all of Europe's defense for generations now. American dollars, American treasure, American blood, American ingenuity is what keeps Europe safe and the free world safe. And Donald Trump's insisting that we be respected, Sean.
Welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, Greenland, maritime strategy, maritime superiority, they're all linked, folks. As you've heard us talk about that many times on this show, the Arctic sea routes are open, and Greenland is highly vulnerable to exploitation from China and Russia. The strategic necessity for America to control all of Greenland and its surrounding seas is vital to our national interests more than ever before. This effort for America to acquire Greenland is nothing new. So President Trump's not just dreaming up some other weird idea, according to the never-Trumpers out there and the Marxists on the left. He's acting on an existing idea to meet our defense needs in the modern world. And he's right. But we won't be successful if we can't defend ourselves and our allies in the maritime domain. The maritime strategy underpinning the new national security strategy is choke point focused, and the effort to increase our domestic shipbuilding must be successful in order for us to achieve peace through strength and deter our main adversary, Communist China. The new Trump-class battleship will give America a renewed capability to control choke points that we really don't have today. But the key to long-term success is increasing our sea lift capabilities. We cannot successfully defend the Pacific or any other large body of ocean without it. No jets fly without fuel delivered by sea lift. No sexy missiles like the long-range anti-ship missile, LRASM, fly without those jets. Time is short. As China has declared, it will be ready for war in 2027. Pentagon Press Corps member Captain John Conrad is my guest today. He's the founder and CEO of G-Captain Maritime News and author of the book Fire on the Horizon. He's licensed to captain the world's largest ships and has sailed from ports around the world. John has built some of the world's most advanced ships and managed billion-dollar offshore construction projects in some of the world's harshest marine environments. And I might add, he's driving the anti-maritime and anti-battleship people crazy. John, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Thank you so much, Colonel. I don't even know why I have to be here, because you just had all of the top points for national security.
Yeah, but I'm an air guy. I did go to the Navy War College, and I managed to graduate with passing grades, but I am an air guy, so I got to have a maritime guy to back me up. So I need you.
I'm happy to be here.
Hey, man, let's dive into Greenland here. Mr. Producer, bring up the Greenland chart, the sea routes chart beside us as we're talking there. This is what it looks like with Greenland down there in the bottom center almost of the chart there, John. And you see the red route has been around for a while. The light blue route along like Russia's coast and all that, that's been around for a while, but new parts of those are opening up. But then the center route is the Arctic route, which is opening up and has opened up. And there's a lot of maritime flow from China and Russia there, especially this Ghost Fleet, of which we've been capturing a few of those ships every once in a while. Is that the main reason that I have it right that we should be controlling Greenland either by making it a U.S. territory or having a better ally agreement to control that territory?
Well, I think this is the perfect one to start on because this is really not only a maritime choke point, but absolutely critical for the air routes. What most people don't understand about navigation on a globe is you don't go in a straight line. So I want viewers to think of an apple and draw between like the UK and New York on an apple. And then you think you would sail in a straight line, but if you actually take a knife and cut between those 2 points, you'll see the cut is curved. And that's why when we sail, we go sail up close to the Arctic. But it's also why all of China's and Russia's ICBMs, they don't come around the Pacific, because then they would need much larger rockets with a lot more fuel, which is more expensive. So they take the short route that dip across the apple there. So there are really two things here. It's one, we can't entirely trust Canada to protect us with the Golden Dome, especially after the last couple of days when Mark Carney goes and makes this quote-unquote New World Order a deal with China. Those are his words, not mine. So can we, the Canadian military is extremely weak. They have more generals than tanks. I think they only have 40 working tanks. They got three, one submarine that kind of works, 3 that are completely rusted, 0 destroyers, 0 carriers. So if they could maintain a patrol up there, that would be one thing. If they had the aircraft and the anti-ballistic missile sites, that's the other thing. And potentially if we could go up there last minute and install our own sites, but we can't even trust them to do that now that they've signed this deal with China. So there are 2 entrances to the Arctic, and one of them is the Bering Strait, the thin waterway between Alaska and Russia. That we can control rather easily. I don't know why the Army hasn't done that, but we could put fortification, we could put artillery. Artillery that close to shipping lines could absolutely devastate any ships that go through that way. But then on the Atlantic side, it's wide open. You have this Greenland, Iceland, UK gap that is enormous. But because of that bite of the apple, ships coming from Russia are going to coming close to Greenland there. So the ships are coming in there, but also submarines, right? And the missiles that are coming from China and Russia, the West Coast and the Midwest of the United States, we can shoot down those missiles with the Golden Dome from Alaska, but we have absolutely no way, if we can't trust Canada, to shoot down any nuclear missiles that are coming to Washington, D.C. and New York. So you need to be able to put the Golden Dome assets there, and whether that's a land-based station or you have something like a battleship or a destroyer that can also shoot down those missiles and control that sea lane. So I think it's a good mix of your expertise and my expertise, why Greenland is so important.
Oh, you're going to make me use the term transverse Mercator chart. That's how we flatten
Yes.
the Earth out, folks, on a piece of paper, so you can draw a straight line on it, but it's really a curved line, as John just explained it very well. So let me ask you this, and I think actually you are one of the few people talking about this in realistic terms, and that is the threat from Canada. I mean, you talked about how weak they are. Is that the threat, or are they becoming unreliable as a NATO ally?
It's an absolute threat beforehand, and it's really a naval threat. Their navy is incredibly weak, so they don't have any destroyers. They don't have any They don't have any of the big ships. They have a few frigates, but the frigates have limited VLS cells, anti-ship and anti-air missiles, and they have really outdated electronics. But they also don't have the anti-submarine aircraft, the under-submarine frigates. So if China wanted to attack the West Coast, if they come through the Pacific directly at California, we have enough anti-submarine aircraft and destroyers. We don't have enough, really, but we can probably detect them and stop them. But China, all they have to do is take that Great Circle route and head into Canadian territorial waters, and they've got nothing there. They don't have any submarines. They have very few aircraft in order to detect that sub, and then the submarine can come down the Canadian coast and hit our west coast. So this fact that they've relied on American defense for so long is okay if we had enough assets to protect our backyard and theirs. We just have enough to protect our backyards, and in reality, if a war kicks off in the Pacific and China's sending submarines, a lot of our fleet is going to move from San Diego to Pearl Harbor, right? So that means we don't need the greatest ships in the world to protect the West Coast, but we're going to need Canada to step up its game in that rear field so our most advanced ship can get out on the tip of the spear. But Canada refuses to do that, and they refuse to even, there's been a talk for years, okay, because you want to be pacifists, you want to be leftists, you want to love everyone. Well, why don't you build those tankers that can replace the fuel and in places like Midway and Hawaii? Why don't you build the fire boats that our Navy refuses to build? They have excellent fire, some of the best fire boats in the world up there. As we saw, a container ship caught fire off of Vancouver a couple of years ago, but they just don't have enough of it, and they don't even want to do peaceful things. And I'm like, those sea lift assets you could use for humanitarian aid until you absolutely need it, and they're 1.2, 1.1, 1.2% of GDP goes to defense. It's like, fine, you got these oceans to protect you, but now the world's getting smaller. They got hypersonic missiles coming over their territory, subs coming through their waters. They have to protect themselves because, and I get so angry about this because, okay, we lose Iran, we lose Afghanistan, we lose part of Europe. That's fine, but my children live here, Rob. I want to protect this house from those submarines and the ICBMs coming over. And because Canada is so weak, and we're talking at all levels, 3/4 of their service members are overweight. 1/3 of their service members are obese. The captain of the frigate that's in charge of this Arctic area protecting Greenland, I mean, he literally looks like Governor Chris Christie's doppelganger. I mean, the guy is so overweight, and I don't mean to body shame or anything else, but I mean, this is when you're running up, there are fires and problems on the ship, and you're trying to run around manage this. I mean, the guy's probably going to have a heart attack, and it's not just him. It's 1/3 of their military is obese right now.
Yeah, that it's not about body shaming. It's about health and readiness. Can he withstand the stresses of combat when it pops up on him out of the clear blue? Because they won't be ready. They're not going to be watching for it, and not have a heart attack. Or a stroke. I mean, that's the real issue, John. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to jump into the Golden Fleet, the battleship. It's a great concept, and John Conrad is the leader of the folks that really got the battleship concept into becoming a reality. And this is going to be a great conversation. You don't want to miss it. I'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
And the first ship named Defiant as part of this Golden Fleet. We've seen the pictures of it. It would be the largest non-aircraft carrier ship the Navy has built since World War II. What do you envision for this Golden Fleet?
First of all, Brett, thank you for having me. And I think it's really special to be in front of the USS Alabama, known as the Mighty A or the Lucky A, fought both in the Atlantic and the Pacific, won 9 battle stars. And to be able to talk in front of this winter about the President's Golden Fleet, which he's made possible, is really an honor. So thank you for that. I think, look, at the end of the day, the Golden Fleet is about it's about 3 things. It's about maintaining and enhancing the Navy's maritime dominance. It's about revitalizing the maritime industrial base. And it's thirdly about changing the way we do business.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and my guest is a maritime expert, merchant marine captain and editor of G Captain, author, and advocate for battleships. John Conrad V is with me here today. John, appreciate you coming back and spending this hour with us. We always have so much ground that we got to cover because there's just a lot of information going on. Secretary Phelan's probably got the hardest service secretary job in the Trump administration, doesn't he?
You know, it's a difficult job, and he doesn't have a military background. He's a finance guy, made billions, next door neighbor of Trump, extremely successful. But they brought him in because this is a financial problem. These shipyards are financially destroyed. We had VT Halter, which foreign investors put $500 million in. They bought all the land, brought up the workforce. They waterfront property down south, and they sold the entire thing for, they had $9 billion in contractors, including the new icebreakers, and they sold the whole yard for $16 million because they just couldn't get through the bureaucracy of Navy, NAVSEA, and some of these government programs. So he's there to make sure that the schedule, the financing, he's got some construction background, but yes, it's an incredibly big job.
Yeah, before we dive too much into the shipyards, let's talk about the battleship. I think, I was one of the strap hangers that kind of glommed onto you and Brent Sadler's advocacy for this new concept, primarily yours, I believe. But I'm all in. I understand maritime strategy. I understand Mahan, having graduated from the Navy War College and everything, and being an air guy that's from a strategic perspective, controlling the sea and in the air after it is the most important thing for your logistics and your communications. And without logistics, you can't do it. And there was an incident, a series of incidents in the Red Sea that proved your argument, wasn't there, about should we have a battleship or should we continue to rely on only aircraft carriers to control things like choke points?
First of all, I have to say, I just the liberals absolutely amaze me at every turn, because I thought, what little boy doesn't love battleships. I mean, whether you think it's great or not, how could you be anti-battleship and be a red-blooded American? And I got more flack for this battleship announcement than anything I've reported in 20 years about the Pentagon. They are absolutely losing their mind, Colonel. And I think it's because the battleship shows real American strength and ingenuity, right? I mean, that's the core of America First, that we build this amazing ship by American labor and American yards, and it's just got a massive power production. But the Red Sea was the real turning point here. I was talking to my friend, Captain James Fennell, a Navy intel guy who really focuses on China, would be a great guest for you. And he was like, how did you become the lead on, like, I was the first one really pushing it. And I tell you, Colonel, it started as a joke. I posted a few battleship memes because I just like battleships. And all the wrong people went after me. They absolutely attacked me. And this was the time where people were making a lot of money doing the inverse of Jim Cramer. So Jim Cramer, all his stock tips, if you do the exact opposite of it, you'll make all the money. It's really hard to find an someone who analyzes this that is right all the time. But if you find, it's easier to find someone who is always wrong. And the people who are always wrong attacked me. And so I first just started pushing it because I like to post strange things that make people think outside of the box, I
agree.
My dad was a fireman right prior to 9/11. 9/11 Commission said failure of imagination. So if I could get people thinking outside, I said this is a perfect opportunity because everyone, including me, agrees battleships are old and dumb. And then the improvement from these crazy people, it started, normal people who are like, are you sure about this? And it forced me to research it and look at the actual what's going on in the Red Sea, what's happening there. These are choke points. So for people who don't know, our merchant ships crossing the Pacific, we can hide out. It's just so vast. But all the ships have to converge at some point. And there are these choke points, Panama Canal, Suez Canal, Singapore Strait. The Red Sea is this choke point going into the Suez Canal, and the Houthis, this band of bandits who are getting drones from Iran, and Iran got a lot from China, and ballistic missiles, were hurting merchant ships. And we tried everything. We tried the Army. We tried sending bomber aircraft. We sent 2 carriers at the same time, and we couldn't stop it because they were just sending all these drones over. What stopped it were our Navy destroyers. They did an excellent job of stopping these Houthis, protecting the ships. But the problem was a fewfold. One, we don't have enough of those oilers, so the destroyers couldn't stay on station long enough because they have small fuel tanks and these huge gas turbines. Next is they have 96 missiles, and that's anti-submarine. Those are Tomahawk anti-land, anti-ship, and anti-air. So we don't know how many classified, 20 or 30 of those are anti-air. They're expensive. They're $10 million a pop against a $20,000 drone. And when you run out of them, the ship has to sail all the way to Bahrain for a few weeks to get reloaded. Now, the French ran out of missiles, and we did too, but we didn't get video. There's an amazing video on YouTube of they running out of missiles and just start hitting these drones with the deck gun. Well, why don't we do that? Why are we shooting these $10 million missiles? Well, the reason is we only have one gun on the destroyer. So if that gun malfunctions, then that missile is going to come right in, and you're relying your Sea Whiz, which is your backup. The missiles are number 1, the deck gun's number 2, and the Sea Whiz, that phalanx gun, is number 3. That has to work, or you're going to die. If we had just 2 deck guns, then one could fail. We have a saying at sea: 2 is 1, 1 is 0. So having a battleship, if you could have multiple of those 5-inch guns, well, then the commander is more willing to use it. Plus, you can carry a lot more rounds, and you can put another system in between the phalanx and the deck gun. That's going to be these laser and directed energy weapons. And guess what? Because the hull is bigger, you can not only carry more guns and more defensive systems, but you can carry more fuel and more ammunition for those guns. So that's what the battleship really is. It's a bigger destroyer. And finally, final point is we don't want to attack the Houthis because no one wants another forever war in the Middle East, right? No one wants to send. But if this was a peer-to-peer battle, if this was a battle against the Chinese, how would you eliminate these Houthis? You'd send in the Marine Corps, right? So those Marines have to land on the beach in the choke point. Well, that destroyer, again, it only has about 20 Tomahawk missiles. Once you run out of those, you don't have artillery because to be more nimble, the Marines had to give up their tanks. So that railgun they're putting on the front of the Trump class battleship, and it's not perfect. Again, I think there should be 2 guns, but that's going to provide the direct fire artillery support that the Marines need to land on that beach and wipe away the land-based artillery.
Yeah, so the old style school battleship is 16-inch guns and massive amounts of ammunition and those kind of things. And we've got this railgun. What about vertical launch system tubes? Is there going to be a big vertical launch system on this battleship so you can launch missiles?
Well, that's one of the criticism. I think it only has 120 versus the Arleigh Burke's 96, and everyone says, "Hey, it's not that much of an advantage based on the size." Well, the reason that there aren't 200 missile cells is because also on this are these hypersonic missiles, which are 4 times the size. I forget exactly how many they're putting on the bow. So what the battleship has to get to the choke point. So when it's still 1,000 miles away, it can hit those big artillery pieces or the big Navy ships with those hypersonics, and then as it gets closer, it can launch its 96 TLAM and vertical launch, and then as it gets closer, it can do the railgun, and then as it gets really close, it can start shooting those 5-inch guns. So they need those hypersonics in order to get into the enemy's envelope. That's the reason.
So sounds like a good idea to me. Is it going to be nuclear powered to eliminate the need to go in and refuel?
Well, no, the first 2 are going to be gasoline and diesel. So they same as the destroyers, they have a gas turbine, which is I think the destroyer one's the same one that's on a Boeing 747. And that's for high speed, and it could also create a high electrical load. And then they have diesel engines in it, which are for cruising speed, so you're not burning through such an enormous amount of fuel. Those are the first 2 ships. The CNO reiterated those are definitely going to be conventional. They're not doing nuclear because they need to expand the nuclear school, so you got to give nuclear training to the officers, and they don't have the pipeline right now because our shipyards are filled with the submarines, which are nuclear. But I talked to a high-level Pentagon official who said on background, I can't mention his name, but it's on background, that they are seriously looking at Flight 2, which could potentially be hulls 3 through 10 being nuclear. What does that do? You don't need those fuel tanks anymore for the fuel on board the ship. So that gives you more room for ammunition and increases the amount of time you can stay on station because you have more ammo. You won't go Winchester as quick, and you don't need an oiler to come in and replenish you. So it's an excellent idea. No one's really sure what it's going to be, but I talked to one nuclear naval architect, and he said it could be as simple as two propellers on the battleship, and each of them has a Virginia class reactor. So you would have 2 different. Again, you need redundancy. You have basically a submarine reactor on the port side and one on the starboard side driving 2 propellers.
Yeah, it's not like it's new technology. I mean, aircraft carriers are nuclear powered. All of them today are, I believe. I don't think we've got any diesels left in the inventory. So we've got that reactor, and then the boomer reactor, and then the attack sub reactor. I think are 2 slightly different concepts or sizes. But yeah, so we solved it then. We solved the problem right there.
Well, it's easy to do. The problem is that pipeline training. We've had 0 nuclear accidents in the Navy because that school is so difficult to to do. My license, I have a Master Unlimited. I can captain any ship of any size anywhere in the world. The only restriction I have is it can't be nuclear because they want you to go to that school. So they're worried if they expand it too fast, it's going to dilute the training. But the real reason is, man, there are a lot of requirements, a lot of red tape for a nuclear shipyard like Newport News. So that's the real trouble. We can potentially increase the training and we can get dry dock and we can solve a lot of these problems. But the Department of Energy just won't let you certify a nuclear shipyard in under like 5 years.
That's something we need to solve because we don't have any time, John. Time is short. I said it in my monologue. I've written about it. You've written about it. And this is a problem that has to be solved quickly. We've got to take another break. When we come back, I want to dive into this China naval threat because I think it's further and beyond what the average conventional thinking on what a powerful Navy fleet looks like and smells like and feels like. And I know John's got some ideas about what's going on there. It's very interesting. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking about the maritime strategy, the need for maritime supremacy in that domain and over it in the air with my friend Captain John Conrad, the CEO and editor and founder of G-Captain, the world's most read merchant marine sea lift type maritime publication. You should go subscribe to that. And John, we were talking about the Golden Fleet last segment, that everything, and we didn't really get to touch on the new frigate concept that's had to happen and some other things, but we will. I've got a question over in the audience I want to take real quick before we dive into that very short clip that I just flashed up there. That was a Chinese container ship with lots of weapons on it, like a porcupine, I think is the way the president would put it. Let's go to Shell with our question in the audience.
We have AJ, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Mr. Conrad, it's a privilege, sir. My question is, because you were talking about the Red Sea in the previous segment, would the recognition of Somaliland by the United States bring a favorable attribute to the maritime side of things in that particular region, given the fact that Israel has already recognized them, and Somalilanders, from my chair, based on what I'm hearing, is that they are not going to charge anybody for going through the Bab al-Mandeb, which is the choke point that goes from Gulf of Aden into the Red Sea. Your opinion would be highly appreciated, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I am not familiar with the details in Somaliland, but what we have to understand and the broader context of this is these were, our problems with Canada, our problems with the UK right now, our problems with Somalia, Yemen. What do they all have in common? And the commonality of them is they all were former British territories. And, some of the territories are doing well, like Australia has been our ally since the Vietnam War. And some were just abandoned, like Somalia and Yemen particularly. So on both sides of the Bab el-Mandeb, you have this void of leadership, this void where the UK just pulled out and we didn't support a long-term government. I'm not familiar. I know there's controversy among that Somaliland, but I support anyone with good ideas on how you institute a government in these areas, because this lawlessness doesn't work. And our plan right now of importing Somalis into the United States, giving them millions of dollars in fraud to send money back in the hopes that money, the Democratic plan, a lot of these fraud is getting remittance, and their hope is that money will support a new government. But we know that if you just pour billions of dollars into a failed state, that's not going to work. So we have to find governments that can potentially work.
Yeah, control mechanisms. You got to have a control mechanism on the other end of that pipe that's pouring out billions of dollars of yours and my tax dollars. You went to the Minnesota-Minneapolis issue before I could get to it. Thanks, John.
I feel silly even mentioning, because it's so obvious, Colonel, that you gotta.
Well,
it's like talking to a kindergarten class. Like, you can't just send billions, children, and not have any accountability.
Well, I was a little bit concerned you would look at the show prep and go, well, we've talked about all this before, but we've got to talk about these things every once in a while, recurrently, because people forget. And we're trying to educate folks and everything. By the way, my grandsons from Iowa both toured the Alabama last summer. They're required to do one educational trip every year when they come to see me. That was our trip. We spent 5 hours on that thing climbing through it. It's an amazing piece of American
And then you went to the
manufacturing.
New Jersey, correct?
And I spoke at the New Jersey back in late October for the Chitterelli race. Absolutely right. So I've been on 2 battleships in the last 8 months. I want to go on the first battleship that's named the Defiant when they get that thing built. That's going to be amazing. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Captain Fennell and I were at Air Command and Staff College together, and we actually worked on the school's graduating operational joint exercise together. So Jim and I are very, very familiar with each other. I'm glad to see you guys know each other too. He's a good man.
Yes, he certainly is.
So China, that very short clip I showed was the only video piece I could find that showed what I called the porcupine sticking off of this Chinese ship, and that was a container ship at harbor. I'm not sure if it's AI created, but it looked accurate to me and looked like it was the real thing. Are we right to be concerned about this, John? Because I'm reading and hearing a lot about it.
This is a challenging point. So it's a theater production. This is, we don't know how well the missiles work. Some of these systems aren't connected, but it's meant to send that message. But there are kind of 2 aspects here. I always get dogpiled, and I always post it anyway, almost every 2 weeks, the fact that more than half of our Navy ships are undefended. They don't even have failing Sea Whiz. They got nothing. And I get all this flack saying, well, our warships have gone to the CRAM. CRAM is just 12 mini RAM missiles. So you only get 12 shots versus, 1,100 to 1,500 rounds in the Sea Whiz. But the point I'm trying to make, and everyone goes, well, most of our warships have at least that. Our biggest fleet in the Navy is Military Sealift Command. They have the Oilers. They have the specialty ships. We have 130. They are owned by the Navy. They are operated by the Navy. They're manned by Navy and Merchant Marine crew. And they have no defensive weapons. And they say, oh, you can't put defensive weapons on a merchant ship. Well, China just did it. So I don't know who's giving you this international law class that you can't put a defense. We almost every merchant ship had Navy gun crews.
Yeah.
So that's half of it. They're not the perfect system, right? They're not a destroyer. They're not going to be able to defeat a hypersonic. But as a merchant marine captain, I have to have something I tell my wife when when the balloon goes up and I'm heading to the west and she goes, "Are you going to be okay?" I could right now. There's nothing I can tell her. We got sidearms. That's it, hon. At least there's a possibility, and we can shoot down drones. They have the largest fishing fleet in the world. Well, they can put drones, $20,000 drones on the fishing fleet. They can't put advanced missiles. So I want at least our Navy oilers to have some Sea Whiz, and this proves that you can do it. The other factor is these Q ships. So in World War II, FDR says, well, all these merchant ships are getting attacked by submarines. Let's have some hidden weapons on board. And when the submarine attacks, surprise, we can attack them. They didn't work that well because he waited too long. So if you go back to World War I, though, there were two merchant cruise lines that had a battle off of the Falklands. That was very effective. So in the beginning of war, these ships are very lethal because everyone's got their guard down. You're repositioning your fleet. You're in the fog of war. You don't have your strategic plans yet. So this is a 0-day weapon. And we need to have our own 0-day weapons to combat it. Now, the problem with this argument is I was in the Pentagon, and I won't mention who, but someone in planning said, "John, we've seen all your articles saying we need these weapons." And this isn't new. It was written in the book Ghost Fleet. We need these so if China could bring one of these container ships into San Diego and just start launching, we need to be able to do it ourselves. And they said, well, we don't need warships anymore because we can just outfit all these merchant ships. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. We still need the battleship. We still need the destroyer, because while these are effective very early on and score a lot of hits, when they're moving back to port to reload, they're extremely vulnerable. So it's a yes, we need them. Yes, we need to be aware of them. Yes, we need to track these, but we can't put all our, give all the money to the AI and drone boys to outfit merchant ships because they're not advanced warships.
I mean, to give folks an idea of, I don't know if you have an approximate number or not, but how many Chinese container ships on any given day are on each of our coasts and harbors, maybe even going through the Arctic sea routes? Do we even have an idea, or do we track those?
Yeah, I don't have the number. It's dozens and coming into our ports, and there are 5,500 Chinese merchant ships around the world. And there's two problems. So if you put all those weapon systems on my merchant ship right now, and I've been yelling about this for years since Trump 1.0, Admiral Busby, I wrote an article, Admiral, I'm not ready for war. I don't have advanced communication training. I don't have anti-mine training. I don't even have a training class. And we used to have that. Obama shut it down. There was the Merchant Marine Naval Training facility, GMATs, in the Merchant Marine Academy, shut that down. So I have no training. Well, what's dangerous about this Chinese ship is all of their merchant seamen are getting military training, communications training, and weapons training. They have a political commissar. So if you remember in Hunt for Red October, you had that one guy, if they don't follow orders, there's a guy who's going to shoot the captain, right?
That's right.
They have that on board their ships now. So these are easily convertible to a military use because they have the trained crew, and they have this communist commissar who can make sure, a Navy crew isn't going to go into a foreign port or a merchant crew and just start launching weapons. But if you have a political commissar standing behind you with a sidearm, that changes the calculus, Colonel.
It sure does. When you combine that with the fact that their combat fleet is already larger than ours, I mean, they don't have as many aircraft carriers, but they've got 3, and they've got the world's only dedicated drone aircraft carrier that they're getting ready to launch. But they do have more ships, and then you combine that with the Coast Guard concept that they have, which is just huge numbers that it creates, and they build these dual use ships like the landing amphibious ships that they keep across from Taiwan that you've seen pictures of lately. They're all dual use. So all these crews, the problem that we have with the nuclear force, that we'd have to ramp it up and increase the throughput and the graduations and those kind of things. The Chinese don't have to do that. That's a huge advantage, especially if you got even just 10 of these day zero combat vessels sitting around in the right places at the right time when things kick off. We got to take our last break, John. When we come back, we'll take one last question from the audience. And I want to dive into the shipbuilding and manufacturing, because the numbers you're going to hear again are not the first time you've heard them, but Secretary Sean Duffy's going to say them one more time. And this is from 2022. Things have gotten only worse. We'll be right back with Captain John Conrad.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
The market and tariffs, but we don't build ships in America anymore. In 2022, we built 5 ships. 5. China built 1,800 ships in 2022, right? So if you want to be a global power, you have to build ships and you have to have sailors to sail those ships. And so the president today said, you know what? We are going to actually build ships in America again, and we're going to train the mariners to sail those ships. So DOT has a huge component of that. We're excited. But this president, he thinks long-term and strategically, and understands that if there's a crisis in the world that involves our military, we need ships to support the military on the commerce side, and we don't make them anymore. So again, that was great. But
welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And we're talking about the maritime strategy, maritime superiority, concerns like Greenland, and why it's important for the United States to control those Arctic sea routes and all of the shoreline and the oceans around Greenland with Captain John Conrad today, the CEO and editor and founder of G-Captain. You got to go subscribe to that. Just type in G-Captain in your search bar and you'll find him. It's a great publication. If you want to talk about the sea lift and container ships, merchant marine, and those kind of things, that's the place to start right there. John, we got one question that I want to take from the audience before we get too far into this last segment. Let's go ahead and take that, Shell. Go ahead with your question.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. And great to see you again, Skipper. I have a question. So 2 questions, actually. The first one's facetious. When is the USS Trump going to be a floating rust bucket like the rest of the fleet? And the real question is, how far have we gotten in regards to the import regulations that you have opined so many times about?
Which import regulations specifically? There's so many problems.
Well, I mean, top of my mind is all the regulations that force our Navy to look like rust buckets.
Oh yes. All right, that's an incredible thing. And what happens is the United States, there are state laws, like you have to have state OSHA, and then you have federal OSHA, and then you have Navy OSHA. And in the Merchant Marine and the Navy, Obama decided to voluntarily follow the UN International Maritime Organization rules. So there's a UN body. There's one for aircraft that figures out regulations for air traffic controllers and such, and we have a maritime one. Problem is that's in London. Panama is in charge of that right now, and they've just gone absolutely woke with these regulations. They tried to put a UN carbon tax on all ships, so that would have been inflationary, would have increased the cost of goods of everything we bought, because 90% of everything is moved by sea. But that's crazy, and it's causing all these problems. We got a shortage of tankers. We got a shortage of certain types of ships, and all of the ships in the world, if this had passed, would have had to go to China to get outfitted with these new environmental systems, which is crazy because ships are already the most efficient way to move goods by far. But the specific problem with the Navy is Obama decided, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea to follow not only all of these regulations, California and state and ocean, everything else, but we're also going to follow the UN organization. And when that UN body was created, Eisenhower and his team, when they were creating the UN, he said, well, this is great, have this body, but they can't regulate Navy stuff because we need our Navy to be lethal. So it's baked in the law that we don't have to follow it, but Obama just goes, hey, why don't we make it more environmentally safe and follow this? And unfortunately, the Trump administration has not cut that cord. I'm waiting for Hegseth or Phelan to say, we're not following the UN rules anymore. We'll still follow the Navy and the Coast Guard, but unfortunately, we have not cut that. And so now with the paint thing, we're following the UN paint regulations, and we're also following the Navy NAVSEA regulations. There are 83,000 people in the shipbuilding and repair arm of the Navy. They all have different ideas of what these regulations. So we end up with the UN outlawed the old type of paint, but there are new types of paint that it's allowed, and then the Navy's got a different requirements, and they don't match up. So we end up with the worst possible paint on our ships.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable that it hasn't been addressed completely yet. But I'm not surprised. So, and that has an impact on shipbuilding. You mentioned NAVSEA. One of the first things I heard from you when I started following you was that NAVSEA hadn't been able to complete a ship on time or under budget in decades. And it's the admirals that run that one. With 83,000 employees, you'd think they would be able to turn a couple of ships a month out, depending on what it is, for goodness sake. But on the shipbuilding, seriously, though, on the shipbuilding expansion and renewal effort, from your perspective, now that you're in the Pentagon press corps, you've had some time to spend with folks, these senior leaders, and go out. You went on a tour, I think, down in Norfolk not too long ago. What's your impression from a combat ship manufacturing capability? Have we made any headway? Is there good things coming on the horizon?
Yeah, well, what people don't mention is the John F. Kennedy, which I toured with Pete Hegseth and his senior leaders, was invited on his plane to fly down. That ship has been in shipyard for 17 years, Colonel. 17 years since we started constructing it. 17. Commander Salamander, our friend, talks about how everything seems to take us a full world war, 4 years to complete anything. Well, this is multiple world wars to do one aircraft carrier. So it's, on one side, things are so bad that even a minor improvement is going to massively ramp up the production of ships, right? Which they're absolutely doing. But the question is, it's not just enough to ramp up to what most people expect it to take. If we're going to hit China, if China's going to hit Taiwan in 2027, we need to ramp up. And Trump's setting extremely aggressive timelines. He wants this battleship, first one completed in 2.5 years. And people say that's impossible. And then, you have the Congressional Research Service, which Ron O'Rourke is like the god of Navy. Love that guy. Like, he's called out the Zumwalt, and he's called out the LCS, and he's called out all of these problems. The guy is just so good, but he just came out with a report saying this is going to take at least 8 years and $20 billion to make this battleship. And I'm like,
wow.
Love you, Ron. I love you, but the largest cruise ship in the world, which has 10,000 people, twice as many people as I mean, a lot of technology, and they're beautifully done. That was $2 billion. $20 billion is more than the nuclear aircraft carrier that took us 17 years. So on one hand, he's right. If we try to shoehorn this into Navy production, I have no doubt that the Congressional Research Service, I think it could go $30 billion, but it'll probably never be finished. Or we can take the best commercial practices from South Korea, which we're already starting to do in Philly, build it that way, fundamentally change a lot of what we're doing. But the problem is, with these 83,000 people in the organization who all want these massive change orders, can you make those massive changes? And then the question is, well, can our allies not build the whole battleship? We don't want that. But can they build modules, sections of the ship, barge them over and assemble them? Because that carrier, not all 17 years, but over 10 years, it's in that dry dock. That dry dock, we have very few of them. And if ships are in there for years, that's a problem. So let's build sections of the ship in Mississippi, Alabama, some in Korea, and we just time them so they all arrive in Newport the same time, and then we can weld it together in a few months. That's what we have to do. And if we can do that, it would be aggressive, but we can build that first in 2.5 years, and we can build it for $5 or $6 billion, not $20 billion. But it's going to take that massive change. And on one hand, I'm fully confident we can do it. On the other hand, Trump announced the battleship at Quantico a few months ago, and we haven't put the order in. So, like you said earlier, we have abundance of smart people, abundance of money, abundance of natural resources, abundance of everything. We don't have an abundance of time, and we gotta start moving. That shipyard, as you know, in Mississippi, let's get some workers there. Let's get some cranes. Let's build it out.
Yeah. I mean, I've got one line of sight here. There's a permitted area that a small shipyard could be built, and there's room for expanding it to a large one and expanding the existing. Huntington Ingalls is down here. Bollinger Shipyard's got the icebreaker contract from VT Halter, which was down here. So it's my understanding there's room for expansion in if not all of those, at least some of those existing shipyards too. But I just don't see any movement on it.
Well, the problem is they need money, and Congress, as you know, is broken. We can't expect them to give the money. But Jamie Dimon at J.P. Morgan, he says he's putting $3 trillion of investment into industry. So auto factories, shipyards, infrastructure. The problem is if you invest in a auto factory, you go to the DOT auto department, and they have binders full of this is how many factories, this is the skill level of workers, this is because the Maritime Administration only has 300 people. They haven't done the mandatory yearly shipyard survey report in over 20 years. There's nothing. So when the J.P. Morgan or one of our rear admirals, Admiral Loughran, is a senior vice president at Goldman Sachs. I talked to him. He's like, when I take, they're excited about putting money into your shipyards. They can write that check, and then you can buy the cranes and the personnel right away. We can ramp up. But he goes, when I take it to the risk department, there's not like, where's the paperwork? Where's the survey? How do we know? And they just can't sign off on it. So it's going to take some sort of executive order to say, hey, probably insurance, where we say, hey, go ahead and write that check. Trust us on it. And if you lose your shirt on the shipyard, maybe then the taxpayer will pay you back some of it. That's what we did in World War II. The biggest building in Manhattan wasn't a Navy building, an Army building. It was the federal insurance, wartime insurance building in Manhattan. And we just went to all our shipyards, and they said, go full thing. If you do something criminal, and this was this is how Truman became president, because he had the Truman Commission, where he went around looking for criminal activities at the end. But we said, unlimited checks, go to town, you do what's best. If you do something criminal, you're going to jail. But if you had the best intentions and you failed, we're backing the loan with insurance. So there's a precedent to do this, and the success of that program is what got Truman the vice president, and the world changed based on that. But people forget that history.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us. You're absolutely right. Well, maybe we can just get together a group of guys to create a company to take their money and get the president to sign an insurance document or something. And then we could get to work on this, because we got to think outside the little container that's the human brain. And I appreciate you coming on. Tell folks real quick before I let you go how to find you and anything else that's on your mind from a Pentagon Press Corps perspective. It's been great having people like you and my friend Todd Wood, the Jack Posobiec, and y'all up there getting real accurate information.
Well, you can, my name's John Conrad with a K. You can find me on Twitter. You can go to gcaptain.com, and you can also find my book, Fire on the Horizon, at Amazon. Just type in John Conrad with a K.
Well, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. God bless you. Until next time, we'll keep fighting the good fight. Tomorrow, I have a Christian exile from Iran. Juliana Tamaruzzi is back with us to talk about the uprising that's happening inside the country right now. We'll see you then on Training Tuesday.
I'm not calling.